Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. Today we have something really special that I'm excited to share with you. Several weeks ago, I was asked to be on the local PBS affiliate station KTEP's program called State of the Arts with Marina Montes-Weiss. And today we're going to share the interview from that program. So you'll enjoy watching and listening, and it'll give you a little more insight as to what has made the Consummate Host. Enjoy the interview.
Great hosting isn't about perfection. It's about creating an experience that feels right for you. So whether you're planning a casual hangout or an upscale dinner, Wayne Hilton is on hand to show us how to make every gathering special. He's the host of YouTube series The Consummate Host, which is filmed right here in El Paso. Today, my guest is Wayne Hilton. Welcome to State of the Arts.
Thanks, Marina. It's so glad to be here. I'm just super excited to be able to chat with you today.
So Wayne, you have always been, as somebody who knows you personally, you have always been the host with the most. But how did you decide to turn that into a YouTube series?
Well, it's one of those things where I've had the idea for years. It's always been in my head, and the act of hosting is just like in my blood. I've always done it, and I like to say, people think about, when you think about hosting, you think about like dinners and parties and all that kind of thing. But really, I tell people, being a host is someone who's creating an experience. And, it doesn't always have to involve food and drink, et cetera, but it usually does. But anyway, I had the idea for years. And then, you know me personally, many people know me personally. The last several, years of my mom's life, I was just very involved in her care and still doing my own kind of professional gigs. And then, once mom moved on to her next chapter, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now I've got the time. And there's a big part of my motivation is I want to inspire people. I want to share things that I've learned along the way, and I want to be able to, give people the confidence in doing it themselves. And I just, YouTube, longer video platform is better for me. You know me, I'm a storyteller. So
Yeah.
it's hard for me to wrap things up in like a minute. So I need a little bit longer format. And I just decided to do it, and that was it. It was literally, I was in the gym last September, and the clouds parted and the light shone down, and it said, Wayne, do this. And I stopped working out. I got on GoDaddy, and the domain was available. The Consummate Host was available. And I was just like, okay, that's the universe telling me it's time to do this.
And so you jumped in and did it. But there's something really nice about, I don't remember where I was, but it was pretty recently where we were having this conversation about people want community. Yes, we're on our phones, we're all of that, but there is something different about gathering
Absolutely.
in person.
Oh, no, 100%. I'm going to use a perfect example. So I just hosted a small brunch at my house, and it was centered around kind of an Easter theme. And of course, it was all, I used it all for generating content. But I divided that experience into 3 episodes. So I talked about like a mimosa bar at home. I talked about the food, which was a watermelon gazpacho and a brie sharp cheddar green apple chili mango jelly grilled cheese,
What?
and then egg decorating. And I'm going to tell you, there was a moment where every single person that was there, we were all like crowded in around my dining room table, and everybody was doing all these different egg decorating techniques that I had kind of brought to the table. And there was something magic about that energy of every single person there. Like nobody was thinking about their week behind, their week ahead. Nobody was worried about anything. It reminded me of like the arts and crafts I did as a child growing up. There's something that's awesome about doing something tactile, getting your hands dirty, and being with people doing the same thing.
Yeah, and you've always had that knack. I mean, as long as I've known you, like you're always making something, if it's food, if it's arts, if it's whatever. But now you're just making it so the rest of us can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so I use this I kind of have a golden rule with all experiences. So you have to have a warm welcome, a magic moment, and a fond farewell. And I just, that formula is in my head all the time. So whether it's a 4-hour birthday party extravaganza, or if it's just, a 1 hour business meeting, whatever. I always think of those. And, those things they can be very simple, or they can be planned and orchestrated, but and it's also probably a bit of the control freak in me. Like I just I want the experiences to go how I see them in my head. And so, that's kind of part of like what hosting is about. I do want to say something, speak to that though. I had a really great friend who I collaborated with many times, who's a caterer, and just talking about events. And this is more of the world of like bigger scale event planning, like weddings and those kind of things. And one day she said this to me, and it has had such an impact. She said, remember, nobody sees what's in your head. Meaning that, being a little bit OCD and controlling, that if little details maybe slip off the table, that it's okay, because probably nobody will notice.
It's true. Nobody knows. And then as
Right.
somebody who I worked in the events business for a long time, not hosting like you, but I was also taught like the mark of a good event is that if the people that went had a good time, that's it. They don't know
That's
that
it.
you're breaking your back. They don't know that you dropped
Exactly.
the eggs or that something burnt. That doesn't
Right.
matter. If they
Exactly.
went and they had a good time, you have succeeded.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things, so I have a manifesto. So hopefully, if people hear this, they can go to my website, which is the consummatehost.com, or even check it out on YouTube. But
I love that you have a hosting manifesto, by the way.
absolutely, absolutely. And one of the things I'm really trying to abide by, but of course, anybody that has produced anything knows this is easier said than done. But one of the points on my manifesto is the greatest gift a host can give his guests is time and attention.
Mhm.
And we get so caught up in the production that we've all been there. Like you've been responsible for an event where you're like a scattered mess trying to like hold things together. And it's really just kind of me being more conscious of like the preparation, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and encourage people to you know there's other elements in the manifesto, but there's no magic to a successful event. It's good preparation. That's really what it is.
But can we talk about that? Because there are hosts like Wayne Hilton, and there are hosts like Marina who will just run to Costco and then put everything on a plate. And it,
Right.
it's a good experience still,
100%. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. No,
Okay,
totally.
good.
Go on, go on. What were you going to
No, no,
ask?
no. Well, there's just that. I mean,
Well, I
even
think,
in the prep,
I mean, in an ideal world, yes, because I love being in the kitchen, and I love, making things from scratch and everything. But I'm sorry, there have been times you go get the ham roll ups at Costco, and you get the pre-chunked cheese, and you lay it out on a platter and you make it work. And there's absolutely appropriate times for doing that as well. And conversely, sometimes something is about the food or the food quality, and
right.
so maybe the experience is less. Maybe it's just a really great meal. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a production, but it's just amazing food. And then everything in between. It just I think one thing that's really important is to look at the circumstance that you're dealing with. What do you want this experience to be? I tend to go to the side of I want everything fabulous and extravagant, but
Right,
sometimes
because it's Wayne Hilton.
it is, it's true, but sometimes you do have to take it down a notch, and that's okay too. And I think I love that you asked this, because one of the things, and you'll see this when you start watching my content, when you start watching my videos, there is no set way of doing anything. And I always remind people of that, because I don't want people
Mhm.
watching me thinking I'm saying this is the only way to do this, because it's not. We all have to discover everything for ourselves. That's how it is. Find your own way, find your method, find your rhythm. I'm going to give you lessons that I've learned. I'm going to give you tips and tricks that I have picked up along the way that you can hopefully incorporate into what you're doing. But there is no set way. And if you're in a situation where you have the time, time is a luxury to all of us. But if you're in a situation where you have the time, there is the joy of cooking. There is the joy of taking the time to do that. But sometimes you just have to get expletive done.
Mhm.
How it is.
Okay, so tell me your three things again. The warm welcome, I got that
Warm
one, no
welcome,
problem.
magic moment, and fond farewell.
Okay, so warm welcome. Come in,
Well,
make people feel at
exactly.
home.
So I'll give you an example. I'm starting to think, I just got back. I just got back from Paris, and of course, I'm planning some sort of a like Parisian dinner. I did a lot of shopping and picking things up on that trip specifically for hosting a dinner like that. So my warm welcome for my dinner. So La Durée, the most famous macaron in Paris, right? So obviously I did bring some of those home, but those have all been given away as gifts, but you could order them online. So I did get, a handful of napkins from the La Durée store. So
Mhm.
I'm going to order them online. And when my guests arrive, it'll be a glass of champagne and a La Durée macaron. That's my warm welcome. The magic moment will be some element of the meal. And then my fond farewell, I found this, I was in this fabulous, like kind of confectionery store, like chocolates and that kind of thing. And I found this great gift box that has like individual chocolates wrapped in these really brightly colored graphics from like Paris and France. So I'm going to put some sort of a little mini gift bag takeaway. I'm a huge fan of like the mini gift bag to go, so I'm going to do it. That'll be my fond farewell. But it can be anything, it can even be a moment during the event that's the fond farewell. If it's a birthday party, maybe, you have live music and they sing the favorite song of the person. I mean, there's a lot of ways, you could structure that.
That's absolutely true. So where did this penchant for hosting come from? Because, again, I've known you a long time. This is just something that you do that comes naturally to you.
I
But yeah,
think
where does it come from?
You know what? I have to think, I credit my mom with so many things. And I think I have to give credit to my mom. I was telling this story the other day. So, I have no siblings and both of my parents worked growing up. So as soon as I was tall enough to reach the table, I was given the assignment of setting the dinner table every single night. And literally every single night of the week, I set the table. So, of course, in the beginning, it was like following the rules, making sure everything was exactly as it was supposed to be on the table. My mom showed me the way she liked it. So, knife and spoon, forks on this side, napkin, whatever. So, in the beginning, I just took pride in like my execution of what I had been shown. Well, me and my crazy creative mind. Then, by the time that I was at that point, I'm like, well, this is kind of boring. So now we're gonna start folding the napkin fun. You know what I'm saying? So then that
Yes.
started. And then like I owned it and I was like, okay, well, there might be rules for setting the table, but guess what? I'm gonna break them. And so then, stick the silverware in the water glass. I don't know, have fun with it. But I just think I don't know. I think it's part of being a creative. I think it's part of my brain always looking for an outlet. And what's so awesome for me about the idea of hosting is it's so multifaceted. It's not just food. It's not just decor. It's not just logistics. It's all of those things. And so, I have people, they've asked me like, are you afraid that you're going to run out of content? And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't have enough life to produce all the content that I already have in my head. And, we're living people. It's constantly changing and evolving, I'll give you another example. I mapped out, so I do one episode a week. So every week, a new episode of The Consummate Host comes out. Before I even started, I mapped out a year of content. So I have a roadmap. So I always know what's ahead, right? Really good in plan, really good in theory. I don't think I've used one element off that roadmap because
Hmm.
as we move forward, I'm finding other things and I'm like, oh my God, I want to talk about this. So, I am not worried about running out of content.
No, I mean, it's like you're going about your business anyway. You just happen to be capturing it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
So tell the rest of us, how do we see your show? How do we tune in? I know you've got your
Absolutely.
social media activated, so give us the lowdown.
100%. So, first and foremost, please go to YouTube and just go to my channel, which is called The Consummate Host. And consummate is tricky, Consummate, two M's in the middle. The Consummate Host on YouTube. Please subscribe. Subscribe and call 5 of your friends and get them to subscribe. That would be awesome. And also, you can follow me on Instagram, which is at the Wayne Hilton, and then also just Wayne Hilton on Facebook. So yeah, I mean, please follow, and I love comments and suggestions and feedback and all that good stuff.
Well, I love it. There is certainly no shortage of ideas when it comes to Wayne Hilton. And if you're curious or wondering where to start, the Consummate Host is a perfect place. So check out his show. It's called The Consummate Host. You can find it on YouTube or follow him on Instagram at the Wayne Hilton. Today, my guest has been the Consummate Host, Wayne Hilton himself. Thank you for coming to State of the Arts.
Marina, thank you so much. You have an awesome day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview. It was exciting to be able to share it with you. And today's manifesto moment is, we believe every day deserves a celebration, no matter how modest. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.